We all know that good girls love bad guys. But what happens when a bad boy... This is the weirdest introduction. But what happens when a real bad boy becomes a mutated freak stalking the woods? You like that, ladies? And then we take a look at the story of a young woman visiting her aunt and uncle. She figures it's just going to be a cool time hanging out with her relatives, kicking back, enjoying life. Little did she realize this vacation would be cut short by the darkness waiting outside the house. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. I hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing, and I hope you guys have some awesome plans for the weekend. I don't really know what I'm doing. I do want to say this, we're going to have our Dead Rabbit Radio Movie Club September 12th, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's where Patreon members, free members, and paid members can join. However, I'm also looking at October 10th, I think it is. Battlefield 6 comes out. And there's no promises, right? No promises. Don't get your hopes up. You're like, I don't care, Jason. I don't care. But anyways, I've been thinking, because I got a new PC for the studio. It's a tax write-off because it's... Can I say what I'm about to say out loud if I'm saying it's a tax write-off? Well, okay, I'll figure it out. Because I'm thinking about getting Battlefield 6. And I'm thinking about having game nights, clan nights, I want to find a better choice of words. Teammate nights on Battlefield 6. Wouldn't that be cool, guys? We could all play Battlefield 6. Probably be, knowing me, I'd be like, be 5 nights a week. I'm like, what? You couldn't play Thursday night? That's it. You're out of the clan. You're like, okay, good. I didn't want to play the game anyways. But I'm thinking about it. I don't know for sure. But it's been a long time since I've been playing those first-person shooters. This is a very little-known Dead Rabbit Radio fact, and most people don't believe it, but I almost feel, embarrassed bringing it up, because it's like, I remember back then, I was bragging about it, and people at work were like, dude, that's not something that you talk about at work. I remember the time being super proud of it. I was being courted back when I was playing Battlefield 2, for 10 hours a day. I was being courted by a pro-am team. They wanted me to join. Because I played all the time and I was really, really good at it. And they were like, hey, we're not just a bunch of goofballs playing on the server. We actually have tournaments and we put a lot of time into it. Jason, that's nothing to be proud of. People on WoW do that all the time. No, it was different. It was different. I proved myself in the trenches. Yeah, so, I really haven't played these games since Battlefield 2. Now we're at Battlefield 6, and I know they've actually had 15 games in between the two, so I'm thinking about it. I think that would be cool if we did a Dead Rabbit Radio Battlefield 6 group. Right? Not a clan, we're not going to call it a clan, but I think that's what they call it in the game. But I think that'd be pretty awesome. You guys let me know if you'd be interested. I will say this, though. Coming from a pro-am perspective, Jason, you didn't even make the team. Well, here's the thing. I think eventually my internet went out or whatever. I was really, really poor back then. But I was going to say, don't think you're going to join up and we're going to have a good time, because we're not. It's going to be work. I'm like, what? You only got 18 headshots? Get out of here. You're out of the clan. That'll be my new catchphrase. I have a shirt that says that. It's me screaming, you're out of the clan. No, I think it'd be a lot of fun, but... Again, you're like, I thought Jason was going to be super chill. He always sounds so relaxed on the podcast. He just screamed at me for 20 minutes because I couldn't capture point C. No, I'm more laid back than that. I think it'd be a lot of fun, but I don't know. The problem is with playing a game like that, you kind of got to set some time aside, and I just don't have a lot of time. But, maybe if I plan ahead, we could do, a couple nights a week. Here's the thing. I know I can't do that. I know I can't. I got a podcast to do. But maybe, I guess I could write it off on my taxes, this laptop, because I'm not using it for fun for me. I'm using it for fun for you, my audience. I'm growing my audience. I'll be talking about Dead Rabbit Radio the whole time while I'm playing. So anyways, it's up in the air. What is that, a month away? Possibly. Maybe it's something like 2 or 3 Fridays a month or something like that, or every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or whatever. I end up canceling the show because I end up taking the clan too serious. But we make it, guys. We hit Pro-Am by the end of season 2. So let me guys know if you'd be interested in playing Dead Rabbit Radio Battlefield 6. I think it'd be cool though. We will find out. What are we doing here? Oh, you have a podcast to record. I'm already dreaming. I was like, oh, I can't wait to stick a knife in someone's neck. But someone who never gets a knife in the neck, someone whose kill to death ratio is always 100 to 0. Running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command, everyone give it up for Art, Maria, and Artorias. Woohoo! Yeah, wee! Haha! Yeah, they're running on in. They got all their loadouts ready. They're wearing their camo. They're ready for war. Art, Maria, and Artorias made very generous donations during the 7th anniversary live stream special. That is why they are going to be our captains, our pilots this episode. You guys can't support the show financially through the merch store, the Patreon. I totally understand. I really do. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and get started. Artorias, the young man, their son, we're going to go ahead and give you the honor. We're going to toss you the bunny bicycle. Everyone else climb on the handlebars as Artorias pedals us out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command all the way out to the Philippines. Ika, Ika, Ika. Ika, Ika, Ika. Ika, Ika, Ika. What is that sound effect? I think originally didn't have a card in the spokes, and people were like, it's not 1950s, Gramps. We don't even know what that sounds like. Something like that. But anyways, we Ika all the way out to the Philippines, and I want to give a shout out to Cassius Von Fruity Pants. They sent this story over to me a while back, and it is a creepy one. So we're headed out to the Philippines. Specifically, we're headed to the Bicol region. And this is a peninsula, as well as some minor islands next to it. And the Bicol culture has a very, very interesting lore about it. They have, pound for pound, probably equal to like the Irish, where they have their giants and their fairies and their leprechauns and gnomes and all that stuff. The Bicol people have all of that type of stuff, but imagine a death metal version of anywhere else. I mean, this stuff's intense. It's pretty crazy over there. I've been looking into it. I think we covered something else from this region recently. We'll definitely be covering more, because we're about to take a look at a story of a creature known as the Bugsok. The Bugsok. Now, let's say that you're a little kid. Artorias, for example. He's volunteer. His parents are pushing him into the woods. Yes, we're standing into this woods. I go, Artorias, young man, why don't you walk into the woods and see what happens to you? He's walking. Maria and Art are like, don't do this to her, kid. Don't give nightmares. He just likes the bicycle sound. Okay, it's not Artorias. It's a totally normal boy that looks exactly like Artorias. He's walking into the woods. And as he's walking there, he goes, ow, what's that in my thigh? And he looks down, there's nothing there. He goes, oh, it feels like there's something in my thigh. And he keeps walking around, and then he goes, ow, my calf. Oh, he's just a big crybaby. He's like, walk 10 steps. He's like, oh, I got cramps. Can I come back yet? No, you got to stay out there. He's walking around, and what happens is he begins having all this pain in his legs. So he comes out of the forest, and he's like, guys, I don't know what's wrong with me, but my legs really hurt. So we go, oh, okay, buddy. It's a 10-mile hike back to town. We already took the bicycle away. He's like, oh, man. So this little guy's walking in front of us, and he's like, oh, can't one of you guys carry me? Fine, you big crybaby who has mysterious internal injuries. Jump on my back like Yoda. So I'm walking around. Now Artorias wishes he was part of this story. He's all disappointed. He's not Yoda. We're walking through the woods. We finally get to town, and I take this boy and I lay him on the table of an herbalist. And I go, yo, this kid's super complaining about stuff in his legs. And the lady's looking at him, and she's like, yeah, let me press here. And he goes, no, ow. And she goes, okay. And does this hurt? Ow, yeah. She's pushing on his legs and stuff like that. And she goes, I think I know what's wrong with you. I need a scalpel. And she cuts this boy's... Artorias is like, being Yoda was cool. But I'm glad I'm not on this part. We watch the herbalist cut this kid's legs just a bit. She's not a psychopath. She cuts his legs just a bit, and she reaches in and she pulls out fish bones. She goes, that's what I expected. Drops him in a bucket. And she makes a cut on his calf, and she pulls out a stick. Very interesting. Confirms my hypothesis. And she continues to cut this kid open, and she's pulling out rocks and bones, and not his bones. He's like, his leg's all rubbery now. She's like, whoops, went too far. Pulling out fish bones and sticks and all this stuff out of his legs. And we're like, oh my God, what happened to him? He was just walking in the forest. We were looking at him. How did that happen? And she goes, oh, the Bugsok. The Bugsok did it. Now, the Bugsok is a creature that is kind of the equivalent of a black fairy. It's kind of like an evil fairy. Also considered a goblin, if you have to compare it to like Irish or European mythology. It's just a kind of a menacing creature with supernatural powers that lives in the woods. What makes it exceptional is the way it hunts / reproduces. Because the Bugsok is a humanoid, but they tend to be very short and very dark-skinned creatures. They're human, arms and legs and heads. However, they walk on their hands. And they hold their legs above their head, and they just walk on their hands everywhere. So right off the bat, that would just be terrifying to encounter. You're walking through the woods and you saw a little goblin man jump out of the bushes. That'd be terrifying. But now imagine he jumped down out of the bushes and he lands on his hands. You're all clapping. You're all, ta-da! Wow, what an amazing gymnastic feat. And then he starts chasing you. What would you rather be chased down the hallway by? A guy running after you or a guy walking on his hands? You're like, well, I can easily get away from the guy walking on his hands. I just got to use a broom and like sweep. Whoa, it falls over. Hands weren't made to balance people. But there's something about it looking human but doing inhuman things that would be, and add an element of terror to it. The Bugsok, they walk on their hands. And now, they tend to target children. Usually, well, I guess it's probably like 50-50. What'll happen is a kid will see a Bugsok and make fun of it or start throwing stuff at it or kind of piss this goblin off. So the goblin will be like, oh, you think you can throw a rock at me and get away with it? Fish bones forever in your legs. Seems like a bit of an escalation, if you ask me. But sometimes it's just a kid walking through the forest. Like our non-Artorias example earlier. Walking through the forest, all of a sudden, starts getting stuff in his legs. Now, we were able to save this kid because we took him to an herbalist. But let's say that you didn't know what to do. Let's say you didn't know what was causing your kid to complain. Oh, my legs hurt, Mom. I woke up this morning and my legs really hurt. Oh, you just need to get to school. You need to get to school, Sammy. Oh, but my legs. He's all walking to school. Oh, my legs. And he gets to school. Everyone's like, okay, everyone, it's PE today. He's like, oh, no. Horrible, horrible pain whenever he's walking around. And, he goes back home and he's like, oh, my legs hurt. And they don't know what's causing it. They could take him to a regular doctor. Doctor's not going to know. It has to be an herbalist. Eventually, Sammy, the pain is so unbearable every time he walks, he goes, screw this. And he leans back and he gets on his hands and he puts his feet above his head. And for the first time in weeks, the pain is gone. But he can't keep that up forever. Eventually, his back starts to hurt and he falls down and he's like, oh, if only I could walk on my hands, then I wouldn't have this horrible pain. So over time, he starts walking on his hands a little bit each day to give him a break from the pain. And then he has to just deal with it and walk around the rest of the time. But as he gets stronger and learns to balance himself, he starts walking most of the day on his hands. The people in town are like, dude, what's up with Sam? He's walking on his hands. He says that he feels great. He says that it makes the pain go away. And then he's only exclusively walking on his hands. People no longer see him walk with his feet at all. They're just constantly dangling over his head. And as he continues to walk around on his hands, this boy begins to get shorter. His skin turns darker. Until eventually one night, he just goes missing from the house. He goes missing from town. No one knows what happened to Sam. But if they look deep into the woods one night, they may see a new Bugsok prowling. Sam is no longer a human. He's now a devious creature looking to turn other children into his own monster army. I mean, they're not his monster army, right? You're like, wait, is this the general? Is this the Darth Vader? No, I was being a little dramatic. The point is that's how they procreate. This is absolutely terrifying to me. The idea of turning into something against my will is one of the scariest things in the world. Also, doing a handstand doesn't sound particularly pleasant. But you're just minding your own business. Next thing you know, your legs start to swell up. You have fish bones inside of them. No one can tell. Then you're walking on your hands, and now you're just some creature living in the woods. No responsibilities. No school. Nothing. You get to do whatever you want, kids. All you gotta do is be a bloodthirsty maniac who loves putting fish bones in children's legs. Creepy story. There's actually what's interesting about this, and again, Cassius, thanks for sending this over. When I was researching this, there's modern day sightings of the Bugsok. You can look at people saying that they've seen it running down the street. They can kind of tell because it's a short, dark creature running on its hands. Like, that's super specific. It's about as specific as you can get. You know, you see this video footage and they go, oh, look at this man. He disappeared. Well, that's a problem with digital cameras trying to record. It's a glitch. The man didn't disappear. And the same thing, look at this ghost appear. It's also a lot of these weird digital issues. But it's something this specific, I mean, it has to be a Bugsok. Nothing glitches to be walking on its hands with its feet resting on its shoulders. So you still do have people having Bugsok sightings to this day. It's a creature that they fear. Even as an adult, you would always be afraid. You may not turn into a Bugsok someday, but you might be afraid that your children would be taken by this creature. Absolutely fascinating, the life cycle of a cryptid. What's interesting about these creatures, too, is they don't list any weaknesses or how to kill them or anything like that. So I don't know how often people have had encounters with these things and survived, even as adults. Because a lot of times with these stories, these legends, they're like, and a leprechaun hates iron. He has these strengths and these weaknesses. He has these ways to outsmart him. Stuff like that. But with the Bugsok, it's like, just don't go near this thing. Has no weaknesses. It's going to turn you into one of them. Just walk the other way. It's interesting because there aren't reported encounters of adults being like, and then I chased it off, or it attacked me, but I was able to shoot it and it ran away. No, it's basically like kids get turned into this thing, and as far as we know, it kills every adult it sees. That's why there's no stories about it from an adult point of view. There's no, I was walking through the woods, I saw a Bugsok and I ran away, because the person who sees a Bugsok is killed. And that would explain why there are no weaknesses to this, because no one survived an encounter with one of these things. So it's absolutely terrifying. Bugsok literally means turned upside down. And what's interesting too is that the reason why Cassius Von Fruity Pants sent this over to me was because of a story we covered about an old woman walking upside down on her hands. And that was in Utah. And then he sent me this story and then a story out of Hebrew. I don't know if mythology is the right word, but that was the title of the book, Hebrew Mythology, that the dead walk on their hands. Unless, like, if the souls of the dead are summoned to earth, they walk on their hands, unless they're summoned by a king, and then they don't, they bow out of deference. So this was another story with something walking on their hands. I always find it interesting when we have stuff kind of line up like that. Fascinating stuff. Love it. Okay, Art, Maria, and Artorias, I'm going to toss you. Check your legs, Artorias. Check your legs. He's like, oh, Mom, I'm so scared. I'm so scared. Don't worry, son. The bad podcaster's almost done. Art, Maria, and Artorias, I'm going to toss you guys all the keys to the Carpenter Copter. You got to put all three in at the same time and turn them. We're leaving behind Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Why don't all three of you fly us out to a city in the desert? Now, I'm not saying desert like it's Mesopotamia or something. It's probably something more like Phoenix or Tucson. But the way the story was described is it is a city in a relatively desert area. Or it's possible that I also misspelled it and it's a relatively deserted area. But the point is, we're at a house. The year is 2023. We're about to meet a young woman. We don't have her real name. We're going to call her Mary. And she is visiting family, her aunt and uncle to be exact, in a city Wait, okay, so they live in a city in the relatively desert area. And I mean, it's not super impactful for the story, but maybe not a desert. Maybe it's deserted. Okay, relatively deserted area. So in your mind, either picture a city surrounded by endless sands and there's camels everywhere, or just the part of the city where there's not a lot of people living. You choose. To make this even more confusing, the aunt and uncle, they live on the 16th floor of a building. So you're like, wait. I mean, a skyscraper can be in the middle of nowhere. No, it can't. There's not a lot of skyscrapers in the desert either. Let me just do the story, okay? Okay? They're in this house. They're not in a house. They're in a building. It's 16th floor of a building. Mary's visiting her aunt and uncle. It's about 3 a.m. She's up late watching TikTok. She's scrolling through all the videos when all of a sudden, woof, 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 she hears a dog barking. But does she? She's sitting there in her room. They're on the 16th floor of this building. It's like an apartment complex. And she goes, I heard a dog barking, but this is what she said. Quote, it was how a dog would sound to someone who had only heard about dogs. It wasn't even a person pretending to be a dog either. Unquote. And she's sitting there in her room. The blinds are closed. She hears this dog barking outside. Again, 160 feet off the ground. And she's hearing this barking that's not barking, but barking nonetheless. And she's sitting there and she feels in her heart, whatever she does, she should not look out the window. And so she doesn't. She just sits there. Fascinating story. It's actually, I got another one. This is a two-parter, but let me jump in here real quick. We've covered stories like this before, but they all involved cats, where it sounded like a human specifically saying the word meow. I'll put all those episodes in the show notes. I think we've covered like 4 at this point. It's super weird because the first time we covered it, we're like, wow, this is a weird one-off thing, and we keep finding them. The last 747's been finding them, helping me find them as well. So, what is up with this phenomenon? I think this is the first time we've come across it with a dog, and it's fascinating. She goes, it wasn't a person pretending to be a dog. It sounded like someone who had only heard what a dog's bark sounded like, but had never heard a dog's bark. Well, that's confusing. She said it sounded like if you described a bark to somebody, and then they tried barking, but had never actually heard a dog bark. And what's interesting, too, is even in her story, even her original narrative, she doesn't say, oh, she's not super, like, even in her original narrative, it doesn't really occur to her, wait a second, we're 160 feet off the ground. Like, any noise, right? It could have been a totally realistic sounding dog. A baby crying, whatever. If it was coming outside my window, I don't care what it would be. It's 160 feet off the ground. An accurate dog bark or not, the fact is there should be nothing making noise that high up. So it's fascinating. You're like, Jason, is that a spelling error too? Was it 1 story? 1.6 stories? No, it was 16 stories. At least that's what they put. But anyways, so we have that. Now we have a second story involving the same person. That's why that one was so short. Now let's fast forward to the year 2024, and that's when Mary has another odd encounter. We're about to hang out with her and her grandma. She's at her house, but grandma's over. Mary's trying to fall asleep, but then all of a sudden, meow, she hears the telltale sounds of cats fighting. Jason, we get it. We get it. It's cats fighting. You don't have to keep doing the sound effect. And then another cat showed up just to cheer him on. Meow, meow. 2 cats or more fighting. She doesn't know the exact amount. It's just a melee going on. And she immediately wakes up because she's afraid it's one of her cats involved in this furry fight. Now, there are a lot of cats in the area, so she assumed one of her pets tangled with the wrong stray. She gets up to go outside and see what's going on. She walks to the front door, she opens it, and takes a step out of her house. The first thing she notices is the world is quiet. It's nighttime, sure, but it seems different now. There are no cars driving down the road. But it's not just that. She said when you look down the street, all of the lights in all of the houses were off. You go, well, it is nighttime. Everyone's asleep. Sure, you're right. That would not be a notable observation most of the time. That was the first thing she noticed. The second thing she noticed when she stepped out of the house was that standing right outside the front door was a cat. A cat Mary had never seen before, just sitting there. It's looking right up at Mary, and she's looking down at it. Mary gets the distinct feeling from this cat. Just the expression of its face is what she said. I could just tell what this cat was trying to say to me was, you're not supposed to be here. Mary took a step back into the house without taking her eyes off the cat, and then another step inside. She shut the door behind her, stood there for a moment, and then she went right to where her grandma was sleeping to wake her up. Wait, Grandma, wake up. Wake up, Grandma. And this is really interesting. I thought this was interesting what she said. She said, the reason why I woke my grandmother up was to prove to myself that I wasn't dreaming. Which I've never heard that before. That actually totally makes sense. Because otherwise she could have always written this off as some weird dream, right? She was half asleep when this all started. She could always think it was some dream. But when you go and you wake somebody else up and now they're up and you're talking to them and time passes, it's not a dream. You're actually in the real world. You woke someone up. That's a really interesting way to verify you're not dreaming. It's kind of mean to Grandma, right? She's like, oh, I had a good night's sleep. I was dreaming about dogs barking 160 feet in the air. But Mary needed to know for sure that what she just experienced was real, because what she just experienced, she doesn't understand. It seemed like a dream, so she had to prove to herself that it wasn't. Mary says, she's had a lot of paranormal experiences in her life, but these were the only two that actually terrified her. They were so unsettling, they left their mark among a lot of other paranormal encounters. Both of these encounters were provided by someone using the online name Black Jellyfish. It's funny, I wanted to keep this episode kind of simple, kind of back to basics after two back-to-back conspiracy-type episodes where we're really laying out a ton of information. And I think it's achieved that goal. You're like, yeah, Jason, what was that? It was a dog barking and a cat meowing. But here's the thing. I think there's some interesting things we can take away from this as we end the week. The second story with the cat guard was the one that intrigued me the most, but I wanted to include the dog one for context, because I do think that we've covered so many stories where animals try to help us, warn us of paranormal threats, and we also have stories like this. They're not as common, but we have stories like this. Well, this story actually kind of splits the difference, right? The first one is almost a dog or a dog-like creature beckoning her to look out the window. Because that's what you would do, right? I mean, obviously you're 160 feet up in the air, you hear a dog barking, that's curious. Even if it did sound like it was coming from the ground, that's quite the bark. You're going to want to poke your head out the window. It just tried to deceive her in a way. But the second story, it's both, right? You have the cat noise, you have the cats fighting, which to me, I think was part of the paranormal event as well. I guess I haven't said that outright. I think the cats fighting was another example of some sort of paranormal, and possibly even the same one. But some, for her, they want Mary's attention for whatever reason. And it perfected it. Now it wasn't just the sound of a dog barking that you would describe to somebody, but it was actually the sound of two cats fighting. It was realistic enough to get her up out of bed because she thought her own cats might be in trouble. But when she went outside to check and possibly walk right into this paranormal booby trap, there's a cat sitting on her front porch warning her not to go outside. So this story kind of had both elements going on there. And, we're talking fairly recently, 2023, 2024. I wouldn't be surprised if this phenomenon continues to happen around Mary from time to time. Because, those are both a year apart. Who knows what 2025 holds for Mary? She may find herself tempted once again. Remember, the first time she wanted to look out the window, but she knew that she couldn't. Something told her not to. This time it actually got her out of the house. So who knows what's going to happen next time. But the idea of that cat just sitting there, it reminded me of a story my brother told to me a long time ago, down in the Bay Area. Him and his friend, they go, hey, you know what? My brother's a dork. So I can do the dork voice. Hey, you know what? Let's go play bowling. I don't know who says play bowling, but my brother does because he's a dork. Let's go play bowling. And his friend goes, Eureka, let's go. So they hop in the car, they drive down the bowling alley, and it should be no surprise to say, you live in the Bay Area. Every part of town's a bad part of town. I mean, listen, there's a few enclaves of the ultra-rich, sure. But even in the good parts of town, it's never a great part of town. So my brother and his friend drive out to the bowling alley, and they pull up, and they're like holding hands, jumping, skipping. They're like, we're gonna bowl. They have their own theme song. They're skipping to the bowling alley, and then they stop, and then they start to slow down. They let go of each other's hands. They weren't actually skipping, but they're walking now to the bowling alley, and they start to slow down. And standing outside the bowling alley, this is pretty early in the morning. This was fairly early in the morning. The bowling alley was open, but as they were walking to the bowling alley, they see standing in front of the door this big dude, like a big guy. And the man has his arms crossed. As he sees my brother and his friend approaching the bowling alley, the man just starts shaking his head. No. And so my brother and his friend, they were like, okay, let's not go here. Because there's obviously, we're not supposed to be here. They're all like, out of the way, Tubbo! It's bowling time! They understood the situation. There was something going on in that bowling alley that they should not be there for. So they just turned around, got back in their car, and did something else. And that's just the environment you grow up in, right? You get used to those signals, and you learn, right? Someone could have been like, it's league day, let me through, and that guy's gonna, not gonna be bowling for a while after that. You had someone outside that door warning people away, hey, nah, you're not allowed in here right now. Whether it was a drug deal, whether it was a shakedown, who knows? But they weren't going to find out. They were going to go, why can't we go in? What illicit activity are you doing? I've already dialed 9-1. You tell me or my finger hits 1. No, you just walk away. You figure out something else to do. That's the prudent thing. And that's kind of what this story reminded me of. That cat, just basically, if it could have, it would have had its arms crossed. It would have shaken its little furry head. No. Don't come out here. Now, what's interesting is in both of these stories, my brother's bowling story and the cat guard story, the participants in it had a choice to make. Mary could have ignored the very subtle warning and stepped outside anyways and started looking around. Looked down at the strange cat. Who are you? Did you know who's fighting? As she continues to hear noises around the corner. Oh, move out of the way, kitten. I gotta go check on my cats. She still could have chosen to investigate. There was no paranormal force, but a choice was presented. The same thing with my brother and his friend. They could have either ignored the signs, like not even noticed them in the first place, or went up to the guy and been like, hey, buddy, we're gonna go play bowling, or let us in. But in both Mary's case and my brother's case, they're smarter than that. But some people aren't. Some people either can't read the subtle clues, and they put themselves in danger because of it. It's a fascinating story. I love this idea of, again, this cat may have been less of a helpful spirit to tell Mary, don't come out. Evil is afoot. You're in danger. And it could have just been a cat bouncer as well. It could have been like, listen, that cat over there owes us a lot of fancy feast. A lot. Trust me, kid, you don't want to get involved. And I just thought of that idea. Just as a social, like an animal social level, that's hilarious. Like, the cats are such a well-organized society. They're like, hey, you, Brutus, go make sure no one comes out and disturbs this. And I'll pay you fancy feast tomorrow, I swear. They're fighting, and Brutus walks over there. Just waiting. I didn't even think about that. That alone is fascinating. That's not even paranormal. That's just kind of funny. And what would happen in that situation if Mary stepped down? Brutus is all attacking her. She's like, what's going on? Why am I being attacked by this random cat? He's just doing his job, lady. He's just doing his job. So whether it has a paranormal origin, which is what I kind of originally thought, or it was just like a funny animal story, I don't think it's that. I do think it's paranormal, but I do like the idea of cat enforcers working for the cat mob. Funny stuff. But this idea of a paranormal force actually really working overtime at this point to get Mary to investigate. And here's the thing, she didn't really she put these two stories together when she wrote them up, but I don't think she put them together narratively, as in, something tried to get me to look out of my window in 2023, and I knew that I shouldn't, but now in 2024, a animal-based noise right outside my window got me out of my house to investigate it, but I felt I was stopped. I felt I was given a warning by this cat not to go any further. And I don't think she realized, wow, something's really trying to get my attention. Not in a good way either. She didn't make that connection. So in 2025, 2026 going forward, what happens when she starts hearing those noises again and she does go out of the house and there is no cat guard? What happens to her then? The unfortunate answer is, if she does investigate the strange noise, whatever that noise may appear as next time, if she does go outside to take a look, I think something's trying to get her attention so much, I personally don't think that she will be left alive to tell us what she found. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. Don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have a great weekend.